Guys, I'm going to do a little housekeeping before we get started with the good general. We've got a ton of stuff going on. So Thursday, we have a meetup in Dallas. We will be at the Rodeo Bar at around 5:30-ish. So if you're in the Dallas area and you want to stop by and meet a whole bunch of outliers, we will be there. Much to Kathy's chagrin, because I think she has to be at my house at like 5 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning so that we can get there on time. So this is our meetup schedule. So we've got Dallas this Thursday. Then we're going to go to the Kentucky Derby on the 4th. Then we're going to watch Brandy's brand new team, Bay FC, play in San Jose. And hang out with Brandy Chastain, and then U.S. Open, etc. If you do want to get in on the retreat, our retreat is in Rhode Island at the #1 hotel in the Northeast, top 100 in the world, the Weekapaug Inn. And you will be there with 5 legends that you will live with for those 4 days. Robert Hamilton Owens, Mace Curran, who is the second woman to ever fly lead solo for the Thunderbirds, Joe Jacoby, who's on this call, Olympic gold medalist. You can race him in the pond in a kayak. Megan Riley from Shark Tank, Jackie Summers, who's got the #1 liqueur in the world. And it's going to be an incredible time. So we've already got a bunch of people signed up. We've only got 30 spots. So if you want in on that, let us know. And this next Tuesday, we have a real treat. So at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we've got Vada Adare. So she was voted the #1 chocolatier in the country. She has won 30 Academy of Chocolate Awards. She's a James Beard semifinalist. And we're going to be doing a chocolate tasting today. If you want to have chocolate, for her appearance, today's the last day you can order and get it by our event. I'm very excited for today. So for anybody who's new, this is the format. It's a little bit different. We do 30 minutes of like fireside chat. So me and the good general are going to chop it up for about 30 minutes. And then we open it up for live Q&A. If you have a question, just drop in the chat. Just say, I've got a question. You don't have to write it out. And we will tee you up and you can ask General Michel your question. So I am unbelievably delighted. And I'm going to keep the bio super, super short. So 30-year career in the Air Force. You don't meet a lot of generals. Today's your day. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author. And I don't want to spill the beans just in case people didn't do their research. I think you're going to be surprised at what he's doing now on the entrepreneurial side. And when I first heard about it, through Scott Heathman, I was like, what? That is incredible. And so Scott, thank you for the introduction. So before we kick it off, Kathy, get us started. John, what'd you think? Decent
That's great. I
intro?
just want you to know I had no gray hair when I started this project 3 years ago. So that I'll tell you, that'd be a good prep, brother.
The that picture, I didn't realize this until I saw it this time. Is it you've got a little Tom Cruise in you? A little
Well,
bit. I think it's the smile. I think it's the
I think it's
smile.
a, I think it's a smile, bro.
Thank you so much for joining us. The first conversation you and I had, I remember, I think I called Scott and I was like, holy mackerel. Like I was just blown away uh by all the things that you're doing, but we're gonna get to that. Let's start out uh the young and a lot of these I stole from Scott Heathman. So if they're good
Hi.
questions, you have Scott to thank. The young general Michel, you didn't grow up in the US. And so how the heck do you grow up outside of the US and you wind up not only flying but leading a large portion of the United States Air Force?
Well, like many things we're going to talk about today, my friend, accidentally, right? I was very blessed that my parents are European. They're all originally French. I spent 15 or 16 of my first 19 years overseas, steeped in a culture of hospitality. And, that's one thing we're really good at over there in Europe is spending a lot of time together around a table, a lot of time hugging each other, a lot of time just in community. And I was very fortunate that way because now I look back and I see all those early influences of the value of the power of the table. I look at how I tell people the greatest job I ever had was my grandparents' restaurant in France as a teenager, 13, 14, and 15, leaning across the bar, learning that life's about being social and connecting to people. So
What
it was a great upbringing.
what drew you to the military?
My dad had actually served in the military. We have a long history in our family, even on the French. Going back to my grandfather being one of the youngest aviators in French history. So we had those ties. Candidly, I really wanted. I thought I was going to be an attorney. I thought I was going to do something different. And when I say accidental, I came back. I was over my first year of university in Europe. I came back to visit a friend down in Texas who I had known for a while, and he invited me to Texas State. I saw the campus, I saw what was happening, and then I told my parents I'm not coming back. So I literally transferred school. 3 weeks later, I had whatever my thing shipped, and the adventure began in the U.S. and in Texas State, and ROTC became something that at the time was convenient. It was interesting. I knew it. It was, and then the rest is literally history.
I have a lot of friends, very fortunate to have a lot of friends who served for a long, long time. And I always like to find out from them, you served for 30 years. Did you know it was going to become a career, or did you think you were going to do, your stint and get out?
100%. So it was accidental several times. I thought when I eventually had the opportunity, so I went down to school and I jumped in and got the opportunity to go to some of the training programs they had. And then the Air Force said, okay, we're going to give you a scholarship to do anything you want. So I said, well, I'll fly planes. It seems like so I'm going to do that just for a small period of time. I'm going to get back to I've always had a business entrepreneurial spirit. So that happened. And then you get promoted and get new opportunities. And all of a sudden you blink an eye. And then after my tour in Afghanistan, I was like, if I don't actually, do something different now, I will be subsumed by this amazing adventure. But I know there's other things I want to do. And I finally said, thank you. I'm ready to go start my next life adventure.
I think we mistakenly maybe think entrepreneurship and the military don't seem to go together, but you kind of always had a big entrepreneurial spirit. How did that help you as a leader in the Air Force?
No, it's a great question. And entrepreneurs operate in a bureaucracy in a place. There's as you can imagine pros and cons, right? The military comes with great tradition, amazing talent, resourcing, clarity of mission. So for an entrepreneur, there's there's a lot of things available to you in forms of resourcing and scale. And when you look at no lack of challenge and inspiration to be given. And so what I found was that turned out to be a very strength. It was actually one of the areas that I have come to appreciate more since I left. I almost took for granted how the reason an entrepreneurial spirit of doing things differently, sometimes in a bureaucracy, is it creates contrast. Whereas we're an institution that is, trained and we want things in a consistent fashion. When something different shows up, or you have to approach a problem differently, and then you're successful, then what it does hearken to have individuals pay attention. And then they start to ask. And what it starts to do is liberate opportunities for other people to realize, yes, we have a way we like to do things, but what makes the institution really work is it can't stay stagnant that way. Those things are built over tradition and well-proven strategy methodologies, but it's the entrepreneurs in the systems, and certainly within and we're seeing it more even the DoD and the government, that need for that different kind of thinking. Divergent thinking crashing with like consistency of how we've done things. If you can find that sweet spot there, that's how we keep moving forward. That's how the institution grows slowly, but a little more smartly. And so it turned out to be a great place to hone entrepreneurial skills and be blessed with a whole bunch of capabilities and people. And I think that was all part of the accidental training for the real mission that I believe I was called for my whole life, which now I'm doing.
Which I cannot wait to get into. But before we do that, you've flown all kinds of different planes. You've been in charge of squadrons. You've been in charge of whole bases. Lots of complexity. But I've got to imagine that when they tapped you on the shoulder and said that you needed to train and stand up the Afghan Air Force, that had to be like that seems pretty daunting. Tell us about what that was like and the skills that you needed to get that done.
Yeah, that is a great question, because so let me put a little context for I'm gonna add background to that, then I'll talk about and answer your question. So the building of the Afghan Air Force it's an unprecedented task by technically by NATO, but led by the United States. And the goal is develop a fully functioning. So oftentimes the way we work is we'll bring a particular capability, an airplane we give a nation, certain things we give nations, and that had been long established. But now we're talking, the vision was building something that, especially in a place like Afghanistan, where the nature of the geography, the nature of the long distances between cities. So if you want to think of it logistically, aviation from both a sustainment and a protection was a absolute differentiator, was key. So the objective was develop and invest about $8 billion over the course of this program with systems, people from 14 nations, and do it in a change environment. You think when we joke about change environments in corporate America being kind of like a war zone, the reality is that this one was. So you have an active enemy fighting your change efforts, things changing, political currents, 14 nations with all their own, different version of what NATO means to them. And we're doing this on behalf of the people that are relying on us to help give them a capability that can fundamentally not just change their lives, but change what has been impossible to do in a long time, the trajectory of a nation. So that was a small objective that we were asked to go do. And ultimately, and I've got to give a shout out to, I've got a number of teammates that are on here, but doing something really hard. So that project had been running for several years, and let's just say it had faltered. And we had been fortunate to several times in the DoD be brought into an organization or something that had great promise. It was very significant in size, but it wasn't working as proper. So I'd come in and do that a couple of times. So this was the biggest effort yet. But it came down to, one, I need a small handful of the right people, like all of us. We're like, I look at this amazing array. It's so humbling to even be talking to the individuals on the other side of this screen. So I'm grateful, and I want to thank everyone. So I remember there's a gentleman on here. So Matt Fritz is on here somewhere in the outlier world today with you.
Monty.
And I remember the phone call when I was like, oh, wow, okay, I've been selected to go to Afghanistan. I've got to do this. We have a lot of different constraints, and we have a very limited time frame, because at the same time, the president had announced we're going to have to do this faster. So I remember the top of my list was, Matt Fritz and I have operated, Monty and I have operated together a number of times. So I called him. He had just gotten an assignment to Oklahoma to do things that he's really good at, great family environment. And I asked something like, quote, "Hey brother, what do you have going on for the your next assignment?" And then he says, "Yeah, Altus." And I said, "Hey, would you be willing to consider coming and joining me in Afghanistan?" So there's probably not too many times people, in an active war zone. And I'll never forget that he's like, "Let me talk to Stace, but I'm in." And that's really what makes the world work. We talk about entrepreneurs and the way we think, and it is always, any success is always a byproduct that we're blessed to have a small handful of individuals with remarkable talent and passion and goodness. And in this case, 3 weeks after I show up in Afghanistan, he's with me on the whole adventure. And so we built a small team. We built a very non-traditional approach. We took this complex issue and do what all many leaders do here. We squeezed it down to, 4 things to focus on. And then we just got busy being smarter about how we tell our story. So we became as much a media production, tell the story, connect people around the world to what's going on in Afghanistan to inform at a different level. But the most important thing we did is we invited our Afghan partners to the conversation. What I mean is we're very good at coming in and building things for someone, and we do it often in our image. In this case, by inviting them in, we realized a lot of the challenges we've been bumping up against were structural, they were cultural, and unless their actual view and they could influence this outcome, it was the only way it was going to be sustainable, and it was a game changer. And so the word we use for that now to talk about what we did is, I think we introduced, and this is a shout out to my brother Scott Heathman, who's on the call, the importance of emotional intelligence applied, one person at a time, even in a combat zone, learning them to train, equip, and sustain a nascent Air Force. So it was the magical people around us and a different way to talk and connect that ultimately led to, we were very fortunate when we left. We were awarded the SecDef Award for the most innovative nation building program anywhere in the world. And it was just a byproduct of all the great work by so many other people to get behind a vision of let's do all we can for what we call our Afghan teammates who needed and deserved our best effort.
I think what's amazing about you is whether you're, a brigadier general in the Air Force or whether you're an entrepreneur, you're one of these rare people that can take in what seems like insane complexity and distill it down to simplicity. And I know that you talk about that concept of simplicity a lot. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But, I think what's fascinating, and this is what I'm really stoked to talk about, is a 30-year career culminating in you being a general. You would think that you're probably going to get out and you're going to run a Fortune 1000 company, or we're going to find you running for Congress or the Senate or something like that. But you said, no, I'm going to build a food truck park in, I think, Illinois. How the hell
That's right.
does that happen?
Exactly. Well, I still have people asking that today. Periodically, my wife. So, when we look at, you asked about so I go back to I come to the States accidental. So now I'm here. I kind of end up in the military. That's accidental that I'm here. As I was ready to transition out, I really thought that we always had a passion and heart for mission, and the military will definitely put a fine edge on that. And you just can't get it out. And that's a good thing. But I thought honestly that, okay, to, corporate America, and, dabbled in that just for a very short period. But this passion, this drive that always been in the background about doing a better job of innovating for what I call the least of these. What I mean is there are so many people we know in our communities that are struggling, and they need individuals that can create systems, not just a transaction. It's great to feed someone. We are interested in what if we could bring our experience, our learnings, and our passion to a very specific objective of changing the way people look at food insecurity in America. So we scrapped the kind of traditional path of post-generalhood and we jumped into, a bit naively, initially, this idea that everything we needed in America to at least get at getting at food deserts differently and the things that go with it was already here and visible in plain sight. And it started with the idea of a single food truck, what we might be able to do with that. It has since then scaled into, multiple food truck businesses, an entrepreneur business, multiple campuses, and more importantly, now a regional and hopefully soon national model that will change the way that we at least think about food trucks as community capacity.
So tell us about social kitchen, and it's SOUL kitchen, and the currency of caring, and this whole model that you've built and how that's different. I think we think of food insecurity and we think of soup kitchens and things like that. You've really come up with something. I mean, there's so much complexity behind it, but you've really created something that's very simply elegant, I guess is the best way I could describe it. So explain to everyone exactly what is social kitchen and what is the currency of caring.
I'd be glad to, and thank you for. So, social kitchen was the idea of we'll jump in the food truck business. The goal was, because they're mobile, we understand logistics. Going back to what we did in Afghanistan, our whole career. That's why I said log that. That was so we learned a lot about logistics in the previous career to apply here. Food deserts have a problem with mobility. I live next to East St. Louis. East St. Louis is well known to be a place that is significantly challenged in a lot of ways. Out of all the individuals in East St. Louis, just put a context on it to answer your question, over 50% of them who are SNAP and EBT qualified. So they qualify for government benefits to help them close their gap in access to food and other things. 50% of those folks cannot use their SNAP benefits every month, despite being in one of the most acute places. Why? Because of mobility. So when we launched Social Kitchen, our tagline was mobility is a mission. We're going to take trucks because they're mobile. It's like, and we're going to replace soup kitchens. So most folks may not realize that over 90% of the soup kitchens closed in America during COVID due to health requirements. I mean, we know. And that was really the big impetus, is like, we're not going to replace that. And we have a growing gap in need in our communities. So when that happened, we looked at trucks as a way to be able to first penetrate food deserts because they're mobile. We created the restaurant complex, which is 2.5 acres, and also turned it into a redevelopment project. So we have a restaurant there. We now have a crepe dessert parlor. We have a food truck park. We've taken down the crack house in the neighborhood, and we've created a community space. And in all those various spaces, we use it to project what we call positive power and hope into the community. But in that naivety of the idea of using food trucks, so that actually proved really well. We said we learned a couple things. Food trucks fail at 62% within 2 years in America. Okay, that's one problem. 2, we need a safe, smart way to transact and invite the public and governments and others who want to be part of the solution to do it in a safe and elegantly easy way. So we said, we could actually invite people through a simple token. So we took these round metal objects that we're so known for in the military, we carry in our pocket, and we effectively created this currency of caring. It is a currency. People buy it. They donate $8 at a time. And in exchange, it's a hot meal with a primary side and choices, a side and a drink. And then we collect them. And every time we collect 100 currency of caring tokens, and it started with our place, and now we have 24 places around the area that service collection. Every time we collect 100 tokens, we dedicate a truck, serve 100 to 125 meals in a food desert. And we have sent. So the public has an easy way to give. We've alleviated the need for rebuilding soup kitchens. We're doing our 95th truck, so you can do the math, in less than 2 years now. And most importantly, and that'll lead to the next question, so I'll hold it here because that's a lot. This simple tool this is community wealth in the form of everyone can participate. As we've grown the trucks to 6 and 7 trucks, greater our reach. Then we started incentivizing people to say, for $8 in restaurants and trucks, I'll give you, if you let us pay you $8, you'll give anybody who comes in with a token a chance to have choices at hot meals. And all of a sudden, dignified dining is born.
tell us a little bit more about that concept of dignified dining, because I think that's important.
Absolutely. We focus on two things at Social Kitchen. So I try to condense down what has been a heck of a discovery project and learning along the way to say, we use food trucks as capacity for community. We've created a way to transact all that. But our goal at Social Kitchen is one, dignity through food. We believe people deserve access to a good, hot, nutritious meal, the kind that we pay for and can afford to pay at restaurants. We believe people, and although we're not going to serve a long-term solution yet, we're starting a different conversation. This whole group, everything that I believe we stand for in this world of outliers, which is don't be like everybody else, have the courage to think differently and do bold things and knock some walls over and terrify some people in the process if you have to, right? Well, it's the same thing here. We're changing a way of thinking. Like the answer to food insecurity was invisible in front of you. We're doing the same thing with other areas next. But dignity through food was people deserve choices. When you get you don't get choices when life's hard and you're struggling. It's nice that some people want to give. I appreciate peanut butter and water or the other things they do. It's a gesture. It changes the dynamic of how someone feels and how they feel connected to their fellow brothers and sisters in the community, and even how they think of their community writ large. When a truck pulls up in a neighborhood, or they can go to a participating local restaurant, trade a token in, and they're say, pick from these choices, you have multiple. So dignity through choice is to say, let's honor them by thinking innovatively and courageously about how do we change the way we interact. We also do it with dignity through work. We believe hard to hire people, ex-offenders, individuals with disabilities, they also deserve the opportunity to get into this conversation, and they then get the dignity of being part of something, of belonging. So that's all we do at Social Kitchen. We combine individuals and things in a different way. Food is our common connection point to connect and bless people. And we believe everyone deserves dignity and respect. One meal, hug, smile, interaction at a time. It's that simple. But it's me.
I mean, John, you're solving so many different problems. What is stopping this from sweeping the nation?
So I love that. And so what we learned along the way is, look, we could operate X amount of trucks, but I just got myself immersed inside, right? I needed to get out and work on the business instead of get consumed in it. And that's when it hit us. When we were working this and realized that there's the reason trucks fail is they love to cook and they're good at that, but they're not taught entrepreneurial skills and how to run a business. So we resolved that problem. And we work with Department of Labor. We have the only food truck apprentice program in the United States. And we train cohorts of people for free. But what we learned in doing that is the real way to scale is we need to promote entrepreneurialism. And so we started taking our trucks and our best graduates and putting them into business. So in the last 2.5 years, we built a couple of restaurants. We have 2 restaurants and we have 6 or however many trucks. Every one of them is in the hands of an entrepreneur. So we funded their business, we invested in their training, and we made them the solution to the challenges of our society. So everyone's in the same campaign, connected by this. So that was the limitation to scale. I was like, wow, why could you not? Because every city right now in America has a number of things. I guarantee they have 3 things in common. They have broken people who need a little extra help. They have food trucks and they have restaurants. What if we could ignite that in every city by simply introducing a mechanism, which we think is this, the currency carrying or something, and that mechanism can serve as an organizing mechanism. So by creating entrepreneurs now, we've created a way to be able to feed an entrepreneurial ecosystem anywhere. We now build trucks. We now train. We're doing all these. They're all being moved online to get to exactly your point. We want to build this so it can scale, and we want to give it all away.
It's absolutely mind-blowing to me, and such incredible work that you're doing. What a community like ours, what can a group of us that I all identify as outliers, that I'm sure are all wildly enthusiastic about what you're building, what can we do to be of service to you?
And I appreciate that. So the latest development for us is So we've gone through this. We've proven we have a very interesting concept. We now have the state of Illinois investing to look to want to scale it as well in multiple areas. And from that, then we'll move out to other borders. We've also in the process, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the 6-time Emmy nominated television show called Food is Love. So Lasser Sorensen, who's a world famous chef, has curated and led this show for 3 years. And it's about how food connects people. And he had started in the traditional restaurant system, but in season 3, episode 9, we bumped into each other. And that was almost 2 years ago. And we were the first food trucks. And I remember taking Lasser into Little Sisters of the Poor and the homeless to shoot the episode of us feeding people for free out of a food truck. And it like completely changed his perspective. So we go about our ways. But about 4 months ago, we got reconnected. And in this time frame now, we have just merged the Currency of Caring and all our nonprofit efforts there with Food is Love, which has just been syndicated for the next 4 years. And so we have a very big platform now with a national show, reach, and our goal is this will be the action arm of Food is Love. He's still going to tell the stories and do the things that we do. I now have taken over all efforts around informing food insecurity in a very innovative way, followed by some other type of that same thinking brought to other verticals. So we need 2 things. Would be great. We have advocacy. Everyone on that side of the screen is has some version of reach, and certainly we're all different and we have a passion. So just telling our story. The currencyofcaring.com tells us, it shows pictures, it tells who's participating. So that'd be one. Or telling the Food is Love story as we integrate. So just if you would share our story, share this is a different thinking, because really this thinking we've applied to food trucks and now how to create a whole generation of hospitality entrepreneur could be applied to housing. How do we get at affordable housing? How do we get at more justice equity, right? Or how do we do more creating small businesses? So I would do that. And for those who are interested, every dollar that comes to this, 100%. So we've committed, Holly, my wife and I have committed to funding all the operation elements. Ideally, the business will take care of itself, but when it doesn't, so that we can always say 100% of every dollar that's donated to through our website or goes to feeding individuals on the street. So advocate. If folks want to help fuel the mission directly, one digital currency caring token at a time, you can do that at the same currencycaring.com. And then our goal is to make it easy for people who are following now to be able to see the emerging story and how it can come to a community near you, because that is our goal, is let's get it to other places.
It's amazing. And what I love about this community is, we have a part of our organization called Top Cares, and we spent, our first humanity expedition to Nicaragua to support one of our members, Pete Shaler, who's on this call, who runs Rayo de Sol. And we've got Chasen on here, who runs a great nonprofit that we're involved with. And what's cool is the ripple effect that 700 people can have, if we just do a little bit to help share this message. The good that we can do in this world is incredible, because when you find somebody like Chasen or Peter or John who are so dedicated to making our world a better place, you got to double and triple down on that. So we got a bunch of people who want to ask you a question, but I've got one more question for you. What is something that people probably don't know about the good Colonel Scott Heathman that maybe you've got tucked away in your vault that you'd want to share with us? Pretend he's not on the call.
Oh, okay. I'm sure. Yeah, well, everyone already knows he's kind of about the normal dorkiness about Scott in terms of Star Wars and all those other things. I think everyone here appreciates the amount that he's a resilience poster child with all he's got. He doesn't talk about his adversity much. So he's, Scott's exactly what you see. So that's an interesting question. That's a rare in itself. And since he's already revealed his dork side, I think the way I'll answer this one is, I see him as when his brand's elevating others, And when I look at how little he talks about the adversity and all the things that he still even has to face today just to continue every time to put that smile on, that's what I highlight when I think about it. I have such immense respect and appreciation for someone who can deal with those, but always be showing up 100% for the good of another person, especially his family and his, so that's one thing. I mean, I think we knew about that, but I get to see it regularly. He's on our board. I'm bringing him closer and closer, and hopefully hope to do more with him. And I think that's just something to remind everybody of. And there's probably a lot of them here, right? Where there's just so much of that occurs in the background. But he's every bit the authentic, dorky. I saw one thing I remember at a recent retirement where like the big Chewbacca models come in because somebody was also a Star Wars fan, and to watch Scott Heathman descend back to being 4 years old and hugging Chewbacca's leg would have been a picture I wish I could show everybody. Because I was like inside voice, like, you do know that's fake, right? But nope, I didn't want to ruin his day.
Yeah, don't ever change that in his mind. That's priceless. All right, you ready to field some questions?
Yes, sir.
Sunny in Arizona, you are a leadoff hitter.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing more of your story. I was just taking it all in and thinking about the different things that you've done around a movement within an Afghan community, the dignified dining, the food truck apprenticeship, and what seems to be the common thread there is a deep connection that you find to bring things together that may not normally come together. And so I'm curious, Scott said something about it earlier, but you can take these complex situations and break them down. And so what is the process in your mind to take a rather complex situation and process it down to be something where you can find a solid solution for it?
That's an awesome question. We look at part of it's just the way, you're right. We take in a lot of data. We all take in data, quite a bit. For me, it's always been when we're taking all those in, they're not all weight or not all things created equal. And so quickly trying to identify, and I intentionally use that term for with the Afghan Air Force. We had so many measures and things we're doing, and we all know that's just code for diffusion of attention and resourcing and everything else. If you scope it down, 3 to 5 is the range. I tend to land on 4. So I look when we're bringing all that data in, I register a handful that actually go, this we can do something with, this we can, and then that stops. And from that, so already taking all that, finding 3 to 4 things that we can build around. And you're very gracious, the way you teed that up. I'm glad you brought up that there's still so many folks who believe innovation is about creating something or inventing something. And we're like, I remind people, it's all about an organizing model. So if you have food trucks, we didn't create those. I didn't create round metal objects. We didn't create restaurants. We didn't create broken people. You get it. So getting our mind to go, let's try to do and create a solution with what we have before we create, buy, or build something. That's like my big thing I probably need therapy over. I'm like, let's stop building stuff and let's start using stuff. I mean, so when the data's coming in, it's like Legos. If I were to, because you got all these pieces kind of in there and they're right, and it looks like, what is that thing? But when you pick out certain ones to get started, it's like pick 3 or 4 things that you can get started, knowing you're going to construct on the way with the goal of, try to use everything that's in front of you, the resources, the capabilities, the strengths, and the talent. And only then, when you realize like a critical corner to finish that thing isn't there, do you go build it or buy it. And so I think simplicity is, otherwise we can take in data, we can analyze forever. So part of it's a gift that I can take it in, my life, good or bad, emerges like in a map, and you're like, got it. Those are the things. And it's usually not one thing, right? But as we all know, it is about 3 or 4. You don't have to, you get 3 or 4 right to start. Now you can start to be able to create, you can adjust, and that creates an energy. It also gets people to buy in, right? Because they can understand 3 or 4 things. They can't understand 42. So if that answers your question, it's simplicity through get started, don't make it too many things, and try to contain, try to bound yourself by allowing nothing, building or doing something new, building something new. That's been the biggest success I think we've had, is we only built when there was a confirmed gap that we couldn't solve another way.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love, John, that thought of innovation as you don't have to create something new. So, I run a company called Something New, and we've won 8 consecutive awards for innovation. But I always say, I mean, that's all well and good. But if we were on Shark Tank, they'd throw our ass out and they'd say, nothing you do is proprietary. All we've done is take existing stuff and put a different little spin on it, organize things differently, but it's led to, a fair amount of success. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Let me
I
just add,
totally
I
agree.
agree. So the way I think of innovation is we organize things in a new and novel way, right? So getting exactly to your point, taking things that exist and organizing them in a new and novel way, I think is the most accessible form of innovation everybody has, right? Because you're just taking things that are, so I'm with you. I mean, that's why helping even realize that because it empowers everybody, right? Because you don't have to necessarily have a pile of money or a pile of this, or you don't have to be able to have to build something. So I share your same spirit and approach to innovation.
I love it. We're going to London. Isabel, you're up.
Thank you so much, Scott. Hello, John. Hi, it's a real pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your time. Two things. One is a personal question, and if there's time, I'd like to ask a second question too. So the first question is that you've inspired me to message him. I just texted my brother. He was in the para, and then he was in the special forces, and he was in Afghanistan 3 times, 3 tours. And I feel immense pride having a brother that served. And and I just said to him just now, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for being a soldier. And he always, apologies, my voice is not great. I'm recovering from something. And he always just sends me a thumbs up emoji. That's all I ever get back. And I get it. I want to ask you, how can I best support him? He's no longer in the services, but he is in a very dangerous place in the world right now. Sweetheart, hang on. My daughter's poking me in the back. But what can I best do to support him at this time?
I think it's a great
Sorry.
question. So he's serving in some capacity somewhere in the world, right? Probably doing dangerous things like they, get used to doing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and there's and some communities are a little more rougher tumbler than the other, I would say. But here's the thing we know that affects all people in a positive way. Exactly what you did. We think that a lot of solutions are especially with military and the way we tend to compartmentalize a lot of things, and sometimes people don't show a lot of emotion. I mean, all these are fairly, and I don't know where that would describe your brother, but I suspect he'd probably be some of those. And it's just oftentimes hearing and just knowing that little thing about you're appreciated because we're grateful for what you, and it doesn't sound like a big thing, but to be able to get those, especially from, those that are closest to you, siblings, family members, friends, we hear it generically from individuals that come when people go, hey, thanks for your service. And that's great. But it doesn't have, and I don't know that, and I can speak from my own experience. It's coming in from the closer circles every once in a while, especially when it's unexpected, whether that's that late night text you send or just a picture of something that said, this made me remind you of you because it's something good happening that wouldn't happen unless brave people went out there on the front. It's just little things like that. That's what actually, because we know you'd be there if they did anything else that was more tangible. It's more the things that are psychological and emotional. And I would say just what you just did before you were on this call. You're like, right? Those on a periodic, well-placed, authentic are huge. And they probably resonate despite the emoji. That's like the cool rough and tumble special ops way. That's about as much emotion as you're getting there. But inside, I'm telling you, there's a whole different activation that isn't lost on even the roughest of them. So I'd encourage you to do more of what you just did.
Thank you so much. And you inspired me to send that message, by the way, just to be clear. So I did it whilst I was on the call. And also the second thing is, shout out to Jason Forehand, who's on this call, who's doing exceptional work with Transformation Kitchen. I'm reminded of the work he's doing from what you've said about your incredible work. I don't know if you've come into England at all, or if there's any sort of link with our country, how can I support you here?
Yeah, I think that so going back to one of Scott's questions, I mean, our goal is it's interesting to have an idea and have a theory that we can change effectively replace soup kitchens, build entrepreneurs. But it's not enough to keep it localized. So now we believe we have a responsibility to work with the right people, right? To now take it and make it available to anybody that wants to be able to change the way that they organize it differently for that. Through the show Food is Love over the next several years, the reason we've all merged is then we're going to make it available to anyone from any nation. So I would say it would be just continue to follow us, right? And follow the immersion things that are going on. We're going to make more and more resources available for free because our goal is all the digitized content will be created, made. And so as that story emerges, and then our dream is then we'll have a group of individuals. When people say, can we get some help in our community or our country? Downstream, that will have the right people to deploy with the skills to be able to say, we'll help you do a little innovation summit on this particular thing and get it going so that it's organic. Fair enough? So right now, it's like what I asked, it's just thank you for, maybe follow the movement. And Scott did hit it is a movement. It's a movement about thinking differently around how we serve the underserved. And then as that emerges, there might be some tangible ways as we make it more available as we scale this.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And just for this, so Food is Love, the new series will air starting at the end of July. So just even following that story, and it'll be in Fox and Amazon, and there'll be things out there on it. So that'll actually show pieces of the story that connect back today. You guys are getting an inside view of.
Love it. Love it. Chris Holmes in Oklahoma.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Because my
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
okay, the camera keeps going off and on. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm so glad I got to catch this one. It's just I love what you're doing and how you're doing it. My main question is I'm kind of on like the cusp of doing innovative things, I think, like you're doing, but in a different capacity with youth of our nation, starting small, but I have big dreams and plans for that to go somewhere. I'm curious with with all that you've done, what would you suggest as a starting point for putting into practice similar things in a different realm? I'm kind of career switching into mental health for kids who are aging out of foster care and different things like that.
Okay.
Like, what would you suggest? I'm going to be the low man on the totem pole inside of an agency environment, that type of thing. But like, just as I kind of continue to make these pivots, I don't know if that question is super clear because I was trying to write it and rewrite it, and it just coming out this way. So
I think it's one of the things that I'd offer is this on this notion of clarity. We talked about simplicity already, but that's more in how we define a solution. The most important thing to do up front is clarity. And what I mean by clarity of really understanding, like, because you have a passion for young people. It sounds like some of those young people, they're specifically facing maybe some other kind of barriers through physically, mentally, emotionally, and they happen to be in a foster care system, which in itself needs some reinvention. So if I understood that, those are kind of the area. And so it's the clarity of really what specifically do I want to achieve? I'll go back to ours. Ours was easy. We're going to replace soup kitchens with food trucks. But it was in that clarity and the discovery then as we learned along the way that kind of guided us, right? So as you really having a clarity of first objective and understanding differentiation. And here's the other one that I see, at least now that we're in the social entrepreneur part of the world, it's clarity of what already exists in our community. Oftentimes there's a lot of desire to create, but we don't always understand what capacity that may be very similar. Because sometimes the way to get started is a partnership or saying, I've got a way to add a dimension what you're doing. It goes back to this notion about before we do something, what we think is new, let's make sure it's new. Meaning, is anybody else doing it? Is there anything adjacent? And so I would think taking it, and you may already know it. So if you're already ahead, do you understand, like, and you can, your ecosystem make it 10 miles, whatever your area, your what we call area responsibility. Do you really understand it? Is there anybody and everybody who has a similar passion? What are they doing? Are there opportunities to partner? The way you make this easier is it's come alongside and combine maybe two ideas, yours and augment theirs. And from that, now you've got momentum. So between the clarity of what you really want to bring and do, we want to deliver these kind of skills or lead in transition from people leaving foster care or close that gap. What that definition of your passion is, define that clearly, understand your local community clearly, try to find alignment. And if not, then create it. And then it makes it. And if you create it, then just you put a good story on it, and then the energy will come. And if you partner or it's a win-win solution. If you're willing to align with other folks because you're so committed to the cause, and that sends the message that there ain't nothing in here about ego or that I need to own it. We just need to solve it. That is very powerful to people because that's not normal. Most folks who are like to create things as entrepreneurs. So partnering I hope that. So I would leave you with one word: clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity
no,
inside
you.
and clarity outside.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Rachel in Maryland, you're up.
Rachel in Maryland.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your service and for what you're doing. This is really, really remarkable. I'm a very possibility. I'm an entrepreneur as well, and a very possibility oriented person. So my question for you is, imagine that it's April 16th, like 2034. What do you want to be saying about the impact that you have had as a result of the work you've done?
That's a great question. So I'll even give you numbers because I know there's a lot of really smart data driven and other. So to us, by 2034, people forget what traditional soup kitchens look like. All they understand is that now we're leveraging this community capacity. Food trucks have continued to grow in popularity, or I doubt there's anything replacing them anytime soon. So we've made this the new normal. This is the new normal for communities. It has also influenced the way people will think differently about housing challenges and all the other challenges. It's like, and then complementary with that, we would have spawned hundreds of new entrepreneurial business. We've lost so many small businesses. All we've done is empowered, in this case, invested in small businesses to solve this solution set we call dignified dining, right? And then we simply use the community through a simple piece of plastic to connect them. I think we've spawned 100+ businesses. Now people don't even understand what soup kitchens are. They're things on wheels, right? And then they're filled with entrepreneurs, and then hungry people get choices, and that's dignity. And then bam, that's what happens 10 years from now. They don't know the way it used to be.
Beautiful. I love it. And I love your energy behind it too.
Thank you. We're only slightly passionate about it.
And work our butts off to get there. That sounds good to me. Dave Wan in Iowa, you're up.
Hey, General. Thanks for spending time with us today. It was an awesome conversation. Loved learning from you. But so I also served and ended up leaving the Air Force about 5 years ago as a captain. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also in different circles of veteran entrepreneurs on LinkedIn and different friends groups and whatnot. And I just know that there's so many transitioning service members who used the DoD Skills Bridge program, so they could have a seamless transition to the civilian world. And so I'm sure you've considered it, but like as you're talking, I couldn't help but think of the hundreds of thousands of veterans that are leaving the military or even already out of the military, that would love to jump on board with a former military leader like yourself and continue to show up every single day and feel like they're part of a bigger mission. And so I'm sure you've thought of this already, but I couldn't help think, but like there's like a wide group of individuals that are out there that would love to jump on something like this. So not so much of a question, but just a statement. But yeah, just thank you so much for everything you do.
Well, thank you for your service. I see it back here. I see the Air Force Academy sign football. I see. So thanks for what you did on that first on the first adventure and what you're doing now on the latest adventure. And I appreciate your observation, because that's always, when we started, that was always a core people group, right? So we've ended up really now the individuals that Holly and I have funded into business, and now we're looking to expand to make that more of a systemic way for people to focus on socioeconomically disadvantaged just because of our area. But we've always tried to bring it back to veterans. And your question or your observation is well timed, because there are numerous conversations going on now as we're going to fine point this concept. Because if I could pick all the humans out there, that we would go, who could we get that have a great likelihood that they know how to be trained and organized and equipped, and we put them in these things where they can have their own little business at a fraction of the cost and risk of a restaurant, at something that has great margins, but more importantly, it's united by a mission. Because once you're in the military, whether it's for a couple of years or for 30 or 40, right, you ain't getting the mission out of you. It's the perfect group. So we just started a conversation. We're actually meeting next week with the director of all the apprenticeships for the state of Illinois, and they're looking at the food truck apprentice program, is what we call this, the formal apprentice program, the young program, to do an initiative that would focus on veteran-centric as people transition. We would use them. We would then equip them with the trucks. We would do the boot camp training for a food truck academy, right? And so, we could say we're thinking very, very synergistically and commonly, and that conversation has started. And I think that audience, it's just food's cool now, and a lot of people want it, but they want to do it, and a food truck's cool. And what a better group of people. So I hope by the next time I see you in person at an event or whatever it's going to be, we'll have a report to tell you about the first vetrepreneurs that will be in the mission of dignified dining in their community, wherever they're at. So thank you for that, because it allowed us to kind of get out that it is a great group and we're going after them, because we are them.
Chrysanthi she's practically your neighbor. She's in St. Louis. Chrysanthi,
Sandy,
you're up.
okay.
She's still with us, Kath?
She's on mute.
I'm there. Can you hear
There
me?
you go.
There you are.
Great. So thank you so much for everything, for your service, and for what you're doing. I'm so interested in supporting in a variety of ways. I have a podcast myself, which is specifically to bring veterans into power utility. Scott Eastman and I have talked about it, Scott McGregor, and it is focused on bringing those together. What I would like to offer, if you feel it could be helpful, would be one, to offer literally physically. I could volunteer if you ever need an extra set of hands, because I'm within arm's reach of you. I'm Greek, so I grew up in the restaurant business, because that's what we do. It's just a given. So I have that background, but happy to jump in and take orders wherever you would need me. And then secondly, would love to invite you as a spotlight guest on the podcast to help get the word out, because this is such a unique approach to an issue that so many of us want to help with and never thought about doing it in this way. So would love to support. And then lastly, completely off the cuff, as I was listening, every year in October is the International Lineman's Rodeo in outside of Overland Park, Kansas, where there easily is about 4,000 people who come in for this event from not only all over the country, but actually other countries. And they love food. The power linemen and all of the utility companies and contractors and supply chain, you'd have one hell of a crowd to feed if it's something of interest that you feel like could help get the word out, build support, as well as immediate, financial support for for what you're doing.
No, I think that sounds absolutely. Plus, we have now the trucks in our network are in Illinois, they're already in Missouri. So marshaling that would be it would be great. And then because it does become an opportunity, now it's supporting those entrepreneurs. They're the ones doing the message and the mission, so it'd be a perfect alignment. As far as the podcast, I think that's a great. We're neighbors, and our show and everything that we do here with all this is all headquartered just across the bridge from me, either down in Swansea or over in Alton. So we can come see you, and we'd love to be on the show because we can have a conversation and tell more people and invite more people to be part of the mission.
That would be great. That would be so much fun.
Yeah,
John,
we'll get connected like through whatever.
I want to be cognizant of your time. Can we have a cleanup hitter? One last question. Are you okay with that? Do you have time?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I thought you.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
perfect.
I'm. My time is y'all's time. I'm just grateful for all of y'all and
Oh my
who decided
goodness.
to come and be here today.
Well, this guy, Scott Manthorn, you're up.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Good to meet you in person finally, my friend.
You,
Thank
brother.
you, Scott Heathman, Robert Owens, all the men and ladies on here that serve and served. Love you all. Can't wait to be another advocate for you guys. You all deserve to be at the top of the heap. And thank you, thank you, thank you. We're here for you. We love you.
Thanks, man. I look forward to seeing you again soon on your forthcoming virtual adventure.
Awesome. John, this hour absolutely flew by. And you are a remarkable guy. Why you're not running for president, I have no idea. Because I think you get everybody's vote, but keep doing your thing. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's figure out how this community can continue to support you and all the great things that you're doing, because it's so needed. It's right in our backyard, and I'm just grateful to spend the time with you. So thank you for carving out an hour for us.
Well, thank you, my friend, for teeing up the opportunity for what you guys represent with the Outlier Project, and for everybody here and those that are with us. It's that spirit of entrepreneurialism and being, again, willing to be different that the Outlier Project is about, that I'm so grateful to have spent time with you today, and more importantly, continue the conversation in many, many ways going forward. So thank all of you.
Our hope, John, is always that these aren't just like appearances, and then we want people to feel the love long after the event is over. And I think it's important that these things are not transactional, that they're really we're building friendships, and we're building enthusiasm and momentum to keep things going. So that's my hope.
Absolutely. And I very much look forward to the same. Again, thank you all for the time. I'd remind you, I know you'll send out currencycaring.com has all the details. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on another virtual or in person or whatever we got to do to keep the momentum going together as a group.
Sounds good. God bless you and Holly for all the great work you're doing. And thank you, Scott Heathman, for bringing General Michel into our world.
Yeah,
thank you all very much. Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
the Chewbacca hugger.
I do want to say one thing, since he was afforded the opportunity to say something good or dorky about me, but I often refer to John, and Monty knows this too. He's the human version of cocaine. You spend any time around him, he's highly addictive, and you will have energy beyond belief. And I've known him for nearly 20 years, and I think, Monty, you probably say the same thing. I don't know where he gets his energy, but when I come home, my wife's like, "You've been hanging around John again, haven't you?" I mean, she's like, "You're hopped up on something," and but I will share one more thing. It's not just food insecurity like in the region, and again, it goes to what John does and how quickly he synthesizes things. I snapped a picture one night of the St. Louis Food Bank president on CNN talking about food insecurity, but she was targeting the percentages across the military, and about a little over 10% are food insecure in the military. You're like, that's crazy. We can't even feed our military. Some of them are based on the paycheck they get at the poverty line in some areas of the country where they live. And so I snapped that picture, sent it to John, and I'm like, we got to figure this out. And I don't know if it was the next night or the night after that, 2 beers, couple pens, and a napkin. We were like, this is how we're going to tackle this. And it really took the military a lot longer to accept what we were giving them. But we have already tested out and delivered over 1,000 hot meals to folks at Scott Air Force Base since a little less than a year ago. And so we're going to be taking that to other bases across the United States. And, doesn't matter what services, but we just need to figure out, would this plan work? Could we figure out how it could get sponsored? The currency of caring is the mechanism, all that kind of stuff. So we deliver 200 coins. The base first sergeants who know the people at risk the most, they hand them out. No questions asked, no tracking, no questions. They just go out either as an individual or as a family, and they get a hot meal. And it has been the most popular program at Scott Air Force Base by far. So that's how fast he operates. So
incredible. I love that. Speed, messy action, but in this case, organized by a brilliant mind. So very cool. Guys, thanks again. I know there's lots of places you could be, but to me, there's no better place to get inspired than here together, listening to legends like John. So thank you guys for hanging with us, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you guys next Tuesday night, or I'll get to see you on Thursday in Dallas. I'm looking forward to it.